magnesium hydroxide, magnesium is a solution, magnesium hydroxide solution. So that's what solution is very important. Yeah, it is soluble, but this time it's slow to form that plus hydrogen what? Hydrogen gas, hydrogen gas. Then you need to balance. You need to check whether because the equation is scored when it is what? Balanced. If it's not balanced, it's not a score. It's not scored. It's not getting any score when the equation is not. So magnesium 1, magnesium 1. Then here, hydrogen increase them to what? 4. Like that, so that becomes a balanced equation. Still, magnesium reacts with steam when heated. Or heated magnesium. Magnesium or heated magnesium reacts with steam when heated. Reacts with steam when heated. When heated, forming magnesium oxide. Forming magnesium oxide and still hydrogen gas. So that should make sure that you write the condition, the product which has been formed, plus the equation for the reaction. Plus the equation for the still, we'll look at the reaction with water. Talked about for sodium. Then we are on the second element, that is magnesium. That's magnesium. That's magnesium. So with magnesium, yes, with cold water, but it's slow. It can take like 2 weeks. Very, very slowly. Reaction of magnesium with cold water. But if it is to react, it reacts with what? With steam when it is heated, and at the end you form magnesium. Right, magnesium, which is a solid, reacts with steam. Steam is water in the gaseous state. That one is very important. They are forming. If it is with steam, the product is what? Magnesium or oxide plus hydrogen what? Hydrogen. Then the equation is like that, and I think balanced equation. So then we come to the next element, that is aluminium. Aluminium, how does it react? It does not react with cold what? Cold water. Does not react with what? Cold water. Why? Because it forms an oxide layer that prevents further, a protective layer that prevents further reaction. Why does it form a protective layer? Because here the bonds of water cannot be easily broken by water more. They cannot break the bonds of other intermolecular forces. The forces which are in aluminium are not enough to break the bonds in water molecule, to break those hydrogen bonds in water molecule. I said here the reason why aluminium does not react with water, because the intermolecular forces of attraction in aluminium are not enough to weaken the forces of attraction in water, making them to form an oxide layer that prevents further reaction. That's the reason why aluminium does not react with cold water, because the forces which are in aluminium are not enough to weaken the forces in water molecules. Water molecule, making them to not react with what? With cold water. But when you heat aluminium, it can react also with steel. React with steam, forming aluminium or aluminium oxide and hydrogen. Say here, aluminium, which is a solid, it can be heated aluminium, react with steam, and then at the end you can easily form aluminium oxide, that is solid, plus hydrogen what? Hydrogen gas, plus hydrogen gas. Then I said here the equation, it is scored with what? With balance. Balance, it's not not scored. It's not scored. So you need to come up with our balanced equation. So we need to balance this. That is aluminium here, making us. How does phosphorus react with water? You need to find out the way how phosphorus reacts with sulfur. Does not react with water. Chlorine reacts with water, but it just disproportionate. Chlorine just disproportionate in water, forming chloric 1 acid, and also you form hydrochloric acid. You need to talk about all this as writing the equation for the reaction. This one reacts with cold water in presence of UV and disproportionate or react in presence of UV light, or disproportionate of UV light, and then at the end you form this process forming chloric 1 acid and HCl and the hydrochloric acid. So those are some of the reactions I've left you for phosphorus and even for sulfur. I may not give you each and everything. The reaction with what? With water. Then to talk about reaction with what? Reaction with the acids. Reaction with what? With the acid. How will it react with the acid? Uh, Sodium, magnesium, they react with dilute hydrochloric acid, forming sodium chloride and magnesium chloride. The reaction with dilute acid, like sodium, magnesium, reacts with dilute hydrochloric acid, forming sodium chloride and magnesium chloride. Don't just say forming, they are chlorides. You're supposed to mention the name of those chlorides that are from the sodium and magnesium reacts with dilute hydrochloric acid, forming sodium chloride and magnesium chloride. If it is sulfuric acid, sodium also and magnesium reacts with dilute sulfuric what? Sulfuric acid, forming sodium sulfate and magnesium sulfate. So you talk about even all those reactions with acid. Even the same applies to with concentrated one. That's when aluminium will react with the concentrate, but they wanted only with dilute what? Then silicon does not react with what? With the acid when it's dilute, unless when it is concentrated. When it's concentrated, when it reacts with the concentrated hydrochloric what? Hydrochloric acid, forming hexafluorosilicate acid. But the condition required to react with the dilute acid. Phosphorus, sulfur, and chlorine, for them they don't react with what? With it. They don't react with dilute. Then I've not given the equations, so you can be able to formulate all those equations. Then with the sodium hydroxide, how will they react with sodium hydroxide? Sodium hydroxide, so because with alkalis, with sodium and magnesium, they don't react with alkalis. Don't react with what? With alcohol. Why? Because the reason is because the forces of attraction on sodium are not enough to break the forces of attraction in a alkali, making them not to do what? To react. Making them react. But with aluminium, it reacts with both dilute, dilute sodium hydroxide solution and concentrated sodium hydroxide solution, forming the sodium aluminum, forming sodium. And the equation for the reaction is here. When you get aluminium, set aluminium react with both dilute and concentrated alkali, forming the aluminate. Forming the what? The aluminate. So here the aluminate, you can write that here this one reacts with our sodium, whether it is called or dilute. Both of them they react. And then here you will form your aluminate. Aluminate is Al. Then here water molecule, and according to this, you have four. You have four what? Oxygen molecules. You have four oxygen molecules. So you need to introduce. I say that we balance the oxygen hydrogen by introducing the what? By introducing water molecules. Introduce water molecules. So you need to balance them. So in water molecule, you have how many oxygen atoms? You have only what? Only one. Yet the other side, there are four. So you add plus, so you need three plus that two. That is six. So you need to make them to become how many? Seven. So you make this one seven by writing here three divided by two. Divided by two, it becomes seven. Or you remove that fraction by multiplying all through by two. We are looking at how we can balance this aluminium plus hydroxide ions, forming our aluminate. How have you come up with that equation? You said you first write our equation minus the water molecule, and you balance it with water molecule such that you can balance the number of oxygen. How have we introduced that oxygen? How have we introduced this water molecule? Because aluminum initially was one, and even there it's also one. Oxygen, you add one oxygen, and here the oxygen they were four. So you need to make this to become four oxygen. So how will you make them to become four oxygen? By introducing 3 moles of water molecule. That's the 3 moles of water molecule that have been introduced. So this one you also come to hydrogen. Hydrogen here there are seven, but here you have four, and here they will actually want to eliminate that two by multiplying three out of what? Out of to remove that two, you multiply also by two. So here it will be the over time, so it will remain three. This one will be two. This one will be six. This one will be two, and that one will also be it will be two. That one becomes a balanced equation. Or someone can write that or someone can be able to write that aluminium, which is a solid, it reacts with the hydroxide ion, forming our aluminate like this. And that is another aluminate plus that this one is aqueous plus water molecule plus water molecule. That one, and then you will be able to balance that. But you can take that or that, and then but the equation is supposed to be balanced, supposed to be balanced. You can either write that or that, and then you balance the second. So such for sodium and magnesium does not react with dilute alkali or does not react with alkali. But aluminium, it reacts with both concentrated and dilute alkali, forming aluminate and hydrogen. That's aluminate and hydrogen. That's, and come up with only that equation. Then here When you respond, don't write two equations, just write only one. That's why I have removed that. Then with silicon, 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 silicon reacts with also with the concentrated alkali. What concentrated alkali forming silicate. Forming silicate. But when you have silicon, silicon, it reacts. This is a liquid silicon. It reacts with the concentrated alkali forming a silicate. It's in group 4. We shall borrow that. A carbonate, a carbonate. They are all of in group. So instead of carbon, I'll replace it with silicon, forming what we call a forming silicate. Forming that is silicate plus also here plus hydrogen plus water. Yeah, you form a silicate plus what? Plus water. That's the product that has been that you form. You need to balance. How do you balance that? How do you balance this one? Let us balance this and we'll see. This was multiplied by 2. Then multiply it by 2. Okay. Water is that side or this side? Yeah? You have to be plus hydrogen gas. Be plus hydrogen gas. Plus. Then here you balance with 1 water more, 1 water molecule. 1 water molecule. Then hydrogen here there will be. So that is balanced from silicate and hydrogen. So that's the reaction with the concentrated alkali. With the phosphorus, it also reacts with what? With alkali, and you form just with form you form when the phosphorus reacts with sodium hydroxide, you form this product. You form this product. From that product that has been formed plus our phosphine. You form that product and the phosphine. So you should look for that. Then with sulfur and the chlorine, it reacts also with sodium hydroxide solution into condition in called the adida. If it is called dilute, you form chlorate 1. You also form a chloride and water. Then with the concentrated one, it can form a chlorate 5, a halate. That is a chlorate 5, a chloride, and what? And some of those ones have left you with that one with you, and that's all for that what? That item. I'll meet up there. You could have a good. That's all.